Porsche is a brand that's famous for building some of the most high-tech and innovative cars on sale, but this is not one of them. The 911 GTS is old school, following a proven recipe to create one of the most engaging driver's cars on the road. Picture your vision for the ultimate driver's car. If your taste is anything like mine, it'll have a responsive, naturally aspirated engine, a manual transmission and rear-wheel drive. Three factors that can't be beaten for driver involvement, even if they aren't the fastest way from A to B. You'll find them on dozens of models ranging from the affordable Toyota 86 to exotic cars like the McLaren F1. But it's hard to find those factors in a modern sports car. So those are three factors that are present in this, the Porsche 911 GTS. Porsche's fastest cars, the 911 Turbo and the 911 GT3, have PDK automatic transmissions fitted as standard. Now those are great if you want to set a really fast lap time or have a big go around a racetrack, but for general driver engagement and enjoyment, they can leave a little bit to be desired compared to a traditional manual gearbox, where you're physically doing the work yourself and interacting with how the clutch picks up and all that sort of thing. Can be a lot of fun to do. Now the 911 GTS is special in that it's the fastest Porsche you can buy with a manual transmission, and it also has a naturally aspirated engine, unlike the Turbo. It's an interesting one. It's a bit of a mongrel in that Porsche's picked out the best bits of its catalogue to put into a car that really, to me, is the best of both worlds. Now you've got the wider body from the 911 Carrera 4 and Carrera 4S. It's got huge haunches on the rear. It's 44mm wider than a standard 911 Carrera S, which allows you to put massive 20-inch wheels on there, giving you ridiculous amounts of cornering grip, which means when you push on with the car, it has so much stability and feedback that you really have to push very hard to get anywhere near its limits on the road. Porsche says that this is a car for the road and the track. Unlike its GT3 RS, which is a bit hardcore for most people, the 911 GTS is designed to be something that you could actually live with, and we've certainly found that to be the case. It's fitted as standard with a multi-mode suspension system, so you've got quite a firm setting if you want to have a bit of a go, or there's a regular normal setting that's just great around town, probably a little bit more compliant than a regular 911. The GTS has a full-body, big hip look of the 911 Turbo, but it's not four-wheel drive, which means that the steering is absolutely to die for. The amount of feedback coming through this wheel is just great. It's totally alive with the little tremors of the road and what's happening underneath you, which really is the sort of information that drivers just absolutely live for. It gives you the confidence to go a bit more harder in the car, and it's really rewarding to drive as well. The GTS has a 3.8 litre 6-cylinder engine that produces 316 kilowatts of power, enough for it to zip from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.4 seconds, onto a top speed of 306 kilometers an hour. That sound just can't be beaten. And the response that you get from the throttle, it's just instant. There's no turbo lag because there aren't any turbos. It's just a crisp, fast, responsive engine that really delivers more than some of its parts on paper for me. It is just an amazing car. The way this thing comes alive at speed is just great. But you don't have to drive it that fast. It's one of the beauties of Porsches, is that they feel special at all speeds. Even just tootling around town, the precision of the controls, just the way that the car feels underneath it is just great. I mean, the 911 really shouldn't work in theory. Having the engine behind the rear wheels is just a bad idea. But the car's been honed over decades, and to the point where it is just near perfect now, which is a really special thing, I think. It's not a cheap car, this, priced from $268,300 plus on-road costs. For that, you get a wider body shell than the regular 911 Carrera S, along with 20-inch wheels, a more powerful engine, and an interior with sports seats and Alcantara on the steering wheel and gear knob. But if you want the full GTS interior seen here with red stitching, be prepared to pay extra. Our test car has around 20 grand worth of options, which can make it seriously expensive if you're not careful when specifying the car. Now this is a car that you can have with an automatic transmission, and you can have it with four-wheel drive, and you can have it as a convertible, or even a Targa top. But if you do that, I think you take away from the purity of this car. This car to me is really special because of the rear-wheel drive, and because of the manual transmission, and because of the fact that it's the end of an era. Porsche is heavily rumoured to be replacing this engine with a smaller, turbocharged, more efficient unit in the future. Now, while I have zero doubt that that's going to be a fantastic engine, and it's going to be a really engaging car. I do think we're at the end of an era here. I think this 3.8 litre engine in the Carrera S and the GTS is a really special unit, and it's probably something worth celebrating. Right now, the biggest argument against the GTS is Porsche's Cayman GT4 and Boxster Spyder siblings, smaller and lighter sports cars with manual transmissions mounted to a detuned version of the 911's motor, costing around 100 grand less than the iconic coupe. You couldn't go wrong with either, but there really is something about the 911's heritage that lends additional appeal. Some Porsches are about going as fast as possible, and some are for posing. But the 911 GTS is centered around driver involvement, and if that's what you're looking for, it's probably the best Porsche on sale.